Hey everybody, slightly different video today, more of a podcast style maybe that you can listen to in the background because I'm going to talk on a bit. I have to tidy up the garage because Reno's forks are back from Rechrome so I can put those back together, but I've been in a bit of a mess because I've been playing with electronics and stuff for a little while, playing with some ideas. Anyway, point is I saw an image before I came out the door that IMHO had put online, which is from it's this image basically, and that is a 3D printed metal tube frame, Trellis style frame. I'm going to get into that. That a steel company and a university working together has created, and it's kind of amazing because it's what I always knew would happen, and it's not like some, like I come with some great revelation. It's just looking at this type of fact, this bit of engineering knowledge, and then eventually knowing that when you keep pushing, like engineering does, to lighter, stronger, faster, better, you're only going to end up in one place, and I believe we are on the cusp of a revolution. I don't think we're going to see these things in cars immediately or even in the next 20, 30 years, but motorcycles maybe more, and particularly electric motorcycles, because electric motorcycles not having the normal setup of an internal combustion engine bike, having the same requirements to have the same parts in the same places, there are basically limitations of an internal combustion engine which aren't there for electrics. So I think we're going to see an amazing revolution in design. Okay, so I think we all understand the premise that whenever engineers look to improve something, they nearly always end up turning to nature, because what is the design from nature, like birds' wings and things like that? It is the combination of millions of years of trial and error, finding the best design. Let me get a good example. Okay, so planes, for instance, the little winglets that whip up on the ends of the wings, to my understanding, they are there to help reduce the sort of suck off, as it were. It's to clean up the turbulence of the wing, of the air leaving the wing. That makes the plane possibly, it might make it, I think they're more efficient or smoother or something. But point is, they're an improvement, and where they come from, or their inspiration for those comes from, or at least a facsimile of them, is the feathers on the ends of eagles' wings, which just bend up at the end as they're needed, because they are moving control surfaces. That is something that I think we will probably see in the future, is planes which have more movable control surfaces in, okay, I need to get tidying. I was thinking of motorcycle design the other day, and I'm going to have to get back to my original subject in a minute, but this is why I say it's like a podcast. I think in the future we will see a lot more aero on bikes, in a more futuristic. Imagine you had a sports, and the problem is the weight and everything that goes with this, but imagine you had a sports bike, but the skin of the bike was like feathers, not actual feathers, like plastic feathers, all molded together and fit in, like a tuna's fin, the way that a tuna's fin fits down into a groove. I don't know if you know that, tuna fish, their fin on the top, it all fits down to a perfect groove, and it's perfectly smooth over the top with like a little cap. It's nuts. Anyway, imagine the size of a motorcycle covered in like leaves or winglets or something. So when you're going fast, they all hunker in like this, and they will, they can move independently of each other if they need to. I think they can counteract, I say buffeting, but they can adapt the shape of the bike for the aerodynamics it needs at the time. Then when you brake, they can all whip out sideways to give you an air brake, just like birds, when they want to, or birds of prey, when they're going to hit something, they come down and then they flare really hard with their feet down and then slam their feet into it. But the flare out is like, you can see where I'm going with this. That frame. Many years ago, and this is what I was going on about the turning back to nature for design, I realised that at some point, when 3D printing first came out, I was like, my God, we're on the verge of a revolution, in the sense that it almost felt like a 3D printer would be like a replicator from Star Trek. Okay, it doesn't molecularly pull things together, but it does print something that you want. And then I was like, wow, that would be amazing when they get to printing metal. And they did. Metal 3D printing is a thing. And they're not, at the moment, it's not all that strong. It's good for some stuff, but it's not necessarily that strong. However, some engineering companies or steel manufacturers or scientists, we say, they have actually created a 3D printed stainless steel, which is 2 or 3 times stronger than the standard stainless steel. there are inherent problems with it being porous and stuff like that, but we will get around these problems. We will unquestionably get to a point where we can 3D print metal as strong or as good enough to strong to compare with the current designs of the way we do things. But my vision of this in the future is far beyond that. They have made a car which is AI designed. They basically said to the program, here's the parameters of what you need to do, make the mechanism for that to work. And what you end up with is a very organic looking structure. Why? Because it's not that the program goes, oh, I've got to do it organically. It's kind of like the underlying truth. There is a best design, and organics tends to find the very best design. In the distant future, I believe that frames and things like that will no longer be made in the way that we know them now. They will most likely be one piece, designed by an AI to be the strongest structure for that application you're requiring to do. If it's a car frame or a bike frame, the AI will design the frame. You can put parameters in that, but it will do it. And it will know by, like the insides, because this is said that Trellis frames, the organic Trellis frames, you will know, look identical to the insides of bird bones. Why? Because bird bones are a evolutionary game of trying to make them as light and as strong as possible. And when you want to go light and strong, you go with super thin skin and a supporting structure underneath. Now, another slight tangent here to do with thin skins and structure and rigidity and strength is I believe there are some racing cars from the past, or even maybe in modern times, that are tubular aluminium frames that they actually pressurize with gas, and without the gas inside it, it is not as strong. You can imagine how that works. You put a few psi inside a round tubular structure which has been designed well, it's going to spread the loads around, and the pressure inside is going to help give it some of its rigidity and some of its strength. If that leaks out, I believe that even in some of these cases, these frames can start like buckling and breaking under the normal forces. They need the pressure inside them. I don't know if this was used commonly or whether it was just a couple that experimented with it, but I have heard of this in the past. So you can see where the idea of this organic frame design, designed by AI, 3D printed, you could even make it gas pressurized. Now, obviously, in everyday cars and stuff right now, this is never going to be the norm. It's only going to be the norm when that kind of technology becomes much more profitable. Well, if you think about it as well, there's a lot less wastage in 3D printing. If you're going to CNC a part, you start with a block of aluminium or steel, and you mill all of that material away until what's left is the thing that you want. Whereas in 3D printing, you just build the thing you want. And as I say, there's been limitations, and there still are many limitations to it, but I fully believe that we're going to push way past those to the point that it's not even questioned whether you can use 3D printing for this application. You just will, because it's going to be the better option. You could have a fuel tank 3D printed into the frame with tubes coming down with places to put pumps. You could even have your brake lines have the brake that, rather than having a metal tube down the underside of your car, it could just go through the middle of the frame. Obviously, a problem with that is you're going to be able to clean that out. If the ends get threaded, you're going to have to drill that out, and that's the chassis of the thing that's 3D printed, and that's going to make it overly complicated. That, of course, is one of the things that might completely kill this idea, that the overcomplication of it means that it won't be used. Because even though we could do that, the old school 100 to 500 year old way, kind of, but the point that I'm talking here maybe, will still be a better option or a slight iteration of that. Will it move to composites rather than, like carbon fibres rather than metals? And I'm not sure that's going to be the case, because as you've seen with some space travel stuff, sorry, you're going to hear some squirting sounds in a minute, I've got to blow this tube out of an airline, and the water pump didn't get it out. Whee! Oh, it's a live one! They haven't gone for carbon fibre on some space rockets, like with SpaceX, they've gone with stainless steel. And that's, to my understanding, is because it makes things a lot cheaper and it's perfectly strong. And as we know, there are applications where, people say, oh, use carbon fibre. It would be stronger and better to use steel, and it wouldn't be necessarily that much more heavy. Like in some applications, carbon fibre is not always the best option. So does that mean it's just going to be some futuristic sort of polymer or resin or, you know, a cross metal resin or some? I don't know. I don't know. But the crystalline structure of steel is or of metal is pretty difficult to beat. But then you're going to have to come up with some advanced alloys of stuff. But then we've already got those. You know, there are things out there. Where I'm going with this is I think that we will undoubtedly in the future see organic sort of shapes in frames and vehicles more than we do now. I think the box swing arm of a motorcycle, or I mean, if you look at the modern cast swing arms that are all in one piece, they're getting close to this already as it is. But like, I think with the advent of electric bikes taking over, and that changing the parameters of how you can design a bike, you don't need to have the battery and stuff in the same place as a fuel tank. And as I've said, I do think that we will see a leap in battery technology before this really makes a lot of sense to people. I've done a lot on electric bikes, reviewing them, and we are at a point that they're usable, they're doable. Some people say you can't really travel long distance on them. Someone crossed America across in, I think it was 72 or 78 hours on an Energica RS. Yeah, that 30k electric bike. He rode across the damn country in like 3 days. As I've said, I always think the capacitance gel from Demolition Man, the whole idea of having a gel in your car which you can put, it will take, like a capacitor, it will take the power very quickly, and you can use it to use the engine to get the power, well, the system to get, a motor to get the electricity out. So it's a liquid capacitor. The advantage of that is that should that gel pack become, worn out, old, it's easy to change it. You can just suck the goop out, give it a clean out, and pump in some new stuff. It could be something you could possibly do yourself. This is obviously a made-up technology at this point, but solid-state batteries, which are kind of similar, are coming a long ways, and I do think that there is a way of holding electricity in a goo. There has to be. Of course, it doesn't have to be. It could be completely impossible. I'm just talking out my butt here, but I'm talking out my butt from the perspective of looking at this stuff for years, and I can't help but think of what will become the new norm. Like, I'll tell you why this is also coming up, is because the other day, right, I was walking down the beach doing some metal detecting, and I found a penny from 1905, 117 years ago, and I thought to myself, when you find something like that, you're like, someone dropped this 117 odd years ago, and they were probably peed off about it. Little did they know that in 2022, someone who was the equivalent of an alien to them in technology that I had on me at the time, picked it up. At the time I was doing this, I had a mobile phone in my pocket, which is computing, the internet, think how much technology and how much advancement there is in that thing. Imagine you go to someone 117 years ago and try and explain what that is. I think they will get it. They'll totally understand what it does and think that it's the most amazing thing they've ever seen. I don't think they're going to think it's witchcraft. I think they'll understand that technology is a thing. I had Bluetooth headphones on. Like, I thought about it. I was like, imagine how I would imagine someone from the future, like, think of like Back to the Future, like they're just people like us, but what's the difference? What they're wearing? They're like, oh, it's a jacket that zips itself up and does all this stuff, and to them it's completely normal. To us, it's insane. It's not that outlandish. I think a lot of those designs are actually things we wouldn't end up with because it's just too much hassle. Wearable technology is definitely something we're going to see more of. They can already print stuff into your clothes now, like to do things. And yeah, admittedly, most of the time, wearable clothing ends up being a battery pack sewn into the pockets and some speakers and a hood and an iPhone. A 3.5 jack to plug your phone in so you can listen to music in your hood. I'm not tidying up very well, am I? The thing is, I grew up, right, watching Tomorrow's World. And I remember distinctly when they said, in the future, we won't watch channel 1, 2, 3 and 4. We will have the ability to watch whatever we want, whenever we want, on demand. You can just watch whatever's there. And my brain at the time is like, but how can they do that? Because they can only send the one signal down the thing for channel 1. How did they do that? Yeah, well, obviously, the internet came up. When I realised when that was a thing, and I remembered that, I was like, holy crap! This is actually now a thing. So because of that, and because I get very excited and inspired by, developments, and I would love to see where technology is in 500 years. I know I won't get to see it, but I don't think I'm going to be disappointed what I'm going to see in my own lifetime. Like, it feels like we reached a point a few years back where we almost can do anything we want. It's just a case of time and money. If we put enough effort to it, we can pretty much achieve whatever we need to achieve. If only everyone worked together in a sense like that and didn't fight each other, we would live in a better society than we do. But then to believe that we can live in that sort of society is foolish and stupid, because we never have, and I doubt we ever will. Engineering doesn't ever fill me with dread, it fills me with hope. Ironically, I understand one of the things that pushes engineering harder than anything else is trying to kill each other, and it's amazing the designs we've come up to kill each other. How ingenious a mind to jump out of the ground and take you out of the knees. Don't kill you though, because then you're more problems for the 4 people that have to carry you back, and now you're disabled. We are messed up. We went in such a wrong direction. There's many people who said, we say about, oh, why has alien life never been here? Would you come here? I wouldn't. I want to leave now. Kind of. I think my point is just basically that it's very interesting to see these biological shaped trellis frames being looked at now, and it's something that I've always known has to be the end goal, because as I was talking about, like bird bones, the design of those through nature is going to be the best option. We're going to just do that. That's the thing. I feel like, honestly, we just go, how do we do that? Look at nature, copy that. It's like the ornithopters in Dune, the new one. I've not seen the programme, but I've seen the ornithopters. They are like dragonfly-looking machines. Now, this is the thing. On the scale of stuff, that doesn't work. For an insect, it can buzz its wings because the air molecules don't get smaller when you get smaller, or bigger when you get bigger. The science of the two things don't work so well. So to have something that big to actually fly in that way would require giant wings, which are buzzing at really high rates to be able to get that level of movement of air. But the amount of how rigid that wing would need to be, how light it would need to be able to move it, and the strength in the knuckle, sort of the wrist joint at the bottom to make it do that. Even if you had them as a pair and you just oscillated them in the middle on like a universal joint, it's just going to snap them off right at the base of that shoulder joint. Like, it's just going to go snap. Point is, sorry. Sidetracked again. I bloody love those things. Maybe that's a direction in nature we can't go, because that's the problem. We can't scale up or scale down air molecules. So there is always going to be a limitation on stuff like that. There is an interesting limiting factor, though, to engineering and design and what you'll see in the everyday market to people. I think these AI designed, built, 3D printed, super, super hyper, whatever you're going to call them, cars, bikes, whatever they become, they are going to be the sort of the very high end to start with, of course. Like normal everyday electric bikes now, there's some of them were super expensive in the past, and in time it's just going to cascade down, and more normal options will be cheap and more mental options will be more expensive. But one of the things that limits that and the progression of a technology the most, I've discovered, is people. And not liking change, I don't like change. Unless you can sell this new design to them as a benefit. So, I mean, generally the way you do that is go, it's faster, it's more powerful, it's this, it's that. It's a top trump figure that you can tell to your mate while you're drinking a cup of tea, 3 miles from your house, which is about half the ride that the bike does per weekend. I'm joking, not everyone's like that. But you know what I mean? People have these hyper-engineered to the maximum cutting edge of technology, track orientated machine that they ride between around 11 and 1 o'clock, both in day and angle. Have a cup of tea and go home. No hate to them. They enjoy the bike. If that's what they want, it's their money, it's their bike, do what you like. I'm not one of those people that's like, You know, there's the classic of, if you, I don't know, say I went and bought a motorcycle and I blew it up. There would be people saying, I could have had that bike. Yes, you could have had it if you bought it, but you didn't. It belonged to me, I owned it, and I blew it up. And then you get people saying, well, that's wasteful to do. If it was a rare item, a rare car that people loved, I can understand. People say that about guitars and stuff when musicians destroy guitars, or when people destroy books. But the knowledge, the knowledge is all online pretty much, what's been digitised anyway. The books will survive forever, whereas in the digital will not. No, they won't. They're going to get eaten by bugs. They're going to rot away in a couple of 100 years. I'm not saying books are valueless, I don't know why I'm onto this bit, but you know what I'm saying. There is a human, like, you can't just it's a false, just forget the human emotion on everything. Forget what... This is electric motorcycles, isn't it? Forget a lot of things about your emotions and look at it subjectively, and they are far better than a lot of people will say. I'm not in saying that they're perfect, or that they work now, or that they're a replacement. And I don't want to turn this into an argument about sodding electric bikes again, because... You know, there's only so many times you can read the comment, I will never get an electric bike, but I don't care, that's fine, don't then. I'm never going to buy a Duran Duran CD, but I'm not going to tell other people not to do it. I don't know why I chose Duran Duran or why I chose a dead music format, but you know what I'm saying. There is another limitation, actually, to what I was talking about earlier on about sort of using organic designs. Organic designs were designed to do what they do. Like, you know, a pigeon is designed to fly, to poop and eat seed and make more baby pigeons. It isn't designed to hit a wall. They can do it quite well, and Windows, as I'm sure you've experienced, but sometimes it doesn't work out too good for them. You have to remember that the design that nature was going for there was not to be crash-proof. It was to be alive and light enough to escape being eaten. Now, I imagine most of you have never taken a moment out of your day to think about what motorcycle frames will look like in the distant future using the logical technologies of the time. Or maybe you have. And I do understand that this video is definitely not for all, because this is getting into proper nerdy sort of territory of, like, I don't know, people are just so boring to me that it's like, oh... everyday stuff that exists. Why don't think about the future? Why not pay attention to what's going on around you and imagine what the next thing could be? I mean, maybe I'll come up with the next thing that'll... No, I won't. I won't come up with the next thing. I haven't got the money to back that sort of idea. Not that I have the idea. Though I might. You never know. The paperclip is only ever invented once. Yeah, I'm sure some of you can work out what I was doing here. It's interesting, or sad, should we say, that a lot of younger people are not interested in engineering, or... Did I really use a drill bit to do that? I did, wow. I mean, this is the classic old argument of, is this out the back of not being outside, playing with scooters and push bikes and fixing them and using tools and messing around and making bottle rockets and the sort of stuff that we did when we were kids, you know. Setting fire to stuff. I'm definitely not saying we're innocent. We got up to some mischievous stuff. I will gladly say that none of it led to anything serious and no one got hurt or anything like that. But, like, there were instances of... we filled an oil barrel up with a load of gorse bush to have a little fire, and then realised it was going to be a bit too big. But thankfully we set this up next to a stream, as it were, and we ended up kicking the burning barrel into the stream, which thankfully wasn't flowing, so it went out. So we were idiots, but slightly self-controlled idiots. Of course, I just sound like an old man now. Just like, you know, kids of today don't seem to want to do things that are important to us in the past. But engineering is never going away. Carpentry is another one, you know. Will we replace carpentry with, you know, wooden things with all plastic stuff in the future? No, I don't believe so, because wood is a sustainable thing if it's done correctly. It's one of the best materials at doing that job. With the knowledge, hundreds and hundreds of years of knowledge of using that material, I don't think wood structures will go away. Also, of course, taste. You know, people still like fancy watches that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're massively over-engineered, but at the end of the day, all it does is tell you the time. which a $5 Casio can do much more accurately. Or even your phone, because who uses a watch today anyway? So as I say, it all started out from that post on WeMotor this morning when I saw that picture of that frame, and it kind of culminated all this thinking I've had in my head for years, which I have not articulated out very well at all. I just feel like sometimes I'm living in the future. When you look at, like, as I say, like with electric bikes, I am totally caught. Part of me loving electric bikes that some people can't get, like, oh, I couldn't do without the sound of a petrol motor. I like the sound of an electric sometimes because I feel like I'm living in the future. I always imagined, like, us being on electric things or electric bikes, or that's what they always do in future films. It's all electric, and everyone thought it was cool, and look at that. You didn't hear people going then, oh, well, it doesn't make any noise. The other side to this is that sometimes we come to the best conclusion a long time ago. I very often sit and think, what everyday piece of technology exists that hasn't changed for a long time that could be better? Now, there's a couple of things that come to my mind with this. Bed sheets. The way that we still put bed sheets on duvet covers, like, duvet covers on duvets. So it's like your blanket in a pocket thing. And you know how annoying it is getting in there. I have my own technique, I'm very good at it, blah, 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 whatever. Point is, and yes, they do exist ones with Velcro down the side. The point is, it hasn't changed much in a very long time. And I'm sure there is a better way of doing it. But then you often find in those scenarios where you're like, there must be a better way of doing it. When you start really thinking about it and breaking it down, it probably isn't. And this is equally why, can go off into a pew-pew manufacturer. I don't want to use the words, although they probably use pew-pew now. Poo-poo. Those things, the mechanisms inside those, is very common throughout a lot of them. Like, there'll be ideas of the way that the bolt or some locking part will work, and that will be used as a lineage forever. Like, a completely different looking thing will work in a very similar way to another one. And some of the technology in the current ones goes back hundreds of, well, not hundreds of years, but goes back 100 years or so. It's because the design works. And then, sometimes people will say things like, well, wouldn't this old obsolete thing actually be a good idea to bring back because it had this advantage? The answer is that if time removed that thing from everyday use, it is not useful. Nothing that is truly useful to anyone will go away entirely, because if it can help you, it can make money, and if it can make money, someone's going to use it to help them make money. So I honestly believe that when certain designs die and go away into the realms of history, it's because it's time to go. Right, well, I've got to hoover this up, but you don't want to listen to a hoover. That's my little brain fart. Poorly worded, probably. You're probably just more confused by what I was trying to say. But yeah, I think you're getting the key points I'm trying to make. It's just it's stuff that I think about all the time, and I do realise most people do not spend their time thinking about stuff like this. And I've also come to recognise in myself that I have an absolute hunger for knowledge, and I will just absorb into an area to learn as much as I possibly can about that thing, and then I want to do something else, and then I want to do something else. That's probably one of the reasons that I have such different videos on YouTube, that like 1 minute it might be all about that, 1 minute about that. It's because this is where my brain is. I'm interested in lots of things, not just one thing, and I do realise that the algorithm of YouTube really wants for me to only care about one thing in life. And that's the one thing I'm going to do my channel on. And I don't want to do that, because that's not who I am. And that's not who I was getting to this point, and that's not going to change. I've said this many times with you. If you found this in any way useful, even if it just got you to sleep, please hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new here, if you enjoyed it. And if you didn't enjoy it, well, maybe you hate yourself a little bit, and then you can subscribe and watch more of my videos and hate yourself even more for watching them. I don't know, I'm trying to help everyone in all ways I can. Catch you next time. Thanks, my patrons. Bye. Actually, I do have one more point before I go, and this is something that people should remember. Sometimes people don't like rambling videos like this. However, the alternative is I script it. And if I script it, I can be like all the other people that make themselves seem so much smarter than they really are because they can Google it while they're writing their own script. I don't do that. I talk from knowledge from what I know. I may of course be wrong, and people can correct me, but then I'm at no point telling someone how to design something or how to do anything important. If someone listens to me, that's their choice. And I don't think someone's about to change their entire direction of their company to make AI-designed, organically 3D printed motorcycle frames to make their fortune right now. 1 year's time. This aged terribly. I'm going, bye.